All right, welcome everyone to the transmission of Gene Key 18. So today, the one of the first planets, Mercury, is going direct. Hallelujah. Yeah, so we've had like I think 6 or 7 planets in retrograde, which has given us this cosmic opportunity to sit with ourselves. And also, I know for me, many things have changed. We've gone through, I think, massive changes on our interior of who we be. And some of that has been caused by the outer shifting and changing. I know over here, I've told some of you I'm moving. And we have our 60-day notice because this place is going to get torn down. And, we're in the neighborhood of mega mansions. And so that's what's probably happening over here. So it produces a level of upheaval, even grief over change. There's nothing wrong with grieving change, even though every death is stepping into something new. The cycle just keeps going. So during this retrograde, something probably has happened for you. Some awareness has happened, and Mercury is the first one going direct, giving us an ability to begin to put words to that. So this is your day to realize that that's what's happening. Mercury is in Virgo. So that's the sign of processing. That's the sign of integration. That's the sign of our humanity. I'm feeling all the feels and integrating all those feels. So a series of planets are going to go direct after this, and our world is going to change enormously. And so let's consider that we're ready. Let's consider that this retrograde period has been a real gift to go inward. And even if our lives are busy on the outside, it's okay. There's something that's been happening. And I know for me, it's been in my dream space where you've just taken stock of your life. You may have even felt stuck in certain ways. And it's going to start loosening up. It's going to starting to get into a breakneck speed. And then the other piece of it is we have an eclipse season coming, so that catalyzes another reboot to the system. So these are built in, they're a part of every cycle of the year. So it's not special that we're going through them. It's just that the change that's happening is monumental. It's inner, it's outer, it's huge. Who we're becoming is way different than who we've been. And so let's get into the sun hitting this gate of the I Ching, Gene Key 18. Gene Key 18 is the shadow of judgment. And I personally love this gene key, so I can't wait to dive into it. This is part of the codon ring of matter. So we've talked about that last week, where we were presencing the shadow of seriousness and the gift of delight and the city of ecstasy. So just think about this as a grouping. The grouping is 18, Gene Key 18, judgment, integrity, perfection. 46, the seriousness, as I just mentioned. 48 is also part of it. It's this way that humanity has to come face to face with the void. That is the experience of inadequacy. when we look down a dark well, Gene Key 48, and that actually happens tomorrow. And And next Sunday, it's already shifted into 57. So we may miss this round, but I really want to presence it, because who doesn't know staring the void down? And maybe that's what you got to do during this retrograde. Maybe you're still in staring the void down. I know that's happening over here. Lots of void staring down over here. And lots of tears around it, because it brings up a lot. Gene key 57, it brings up unease, it brings up fear. Most of these gene keys are in the spleen, if you know human design, except for 46, which is in the G, that sense of I amness. The rest of it is in the spleen, which is governing the immune system. It's this part of your being that is the fluids part of your being that is responsible for keeping you safe and keeping you well. And so part of nature has built into keeping you safe like a shit ton of fears, right? That's like, think about it. Early Homo sapiens and other species, Neanderthals, the species that were here before us had to navigate the unknown. They didn't have names for things. They didn't know. And then all of a sudden out walks this, other being that is 4 times the size of them that could eat them. I'm thinking of a woolly mammoth or prehistoric others. And they, they were deep into the unknown, just like we are. And that's the thing about it. We go through this illusion, like we know, like modern humans have created so much illusion of certainty that we are so scared to touch the void. And yet the Tao says that the void is behind everything. It's what gives everything life. Even the scriptures talk about, out of that void, life comes. Let there be light out of that darkness. Even I was talking about when I did Sovereign CEO, for those of you who went to my masterclass, I was talking about the black holes, because I started to watch Interstellar. And then I watched the movie about, not the movie, but the YouTube clip about how Interstellar was made. And Christopher Nolan was talking about how they actually use science and mathematics, and they advanced the field in CGI of understanding a black hole through making this movie. Like, that's just epic to me. Anyway, they have this image of the black hole, and inside the black hole, what is it? It's light. So I'm just like, here we are facing ourselves as mere humans, mere mortals. And that's what the codon of the ring of matter is about. It's spirit penetrating 3D reality and becoming form. And thereby in form, magnetizing its radiance, right? It's light energy. And so the gene keys kind of break it down into, what's the shadow? What are the things that we're up against? What's the gift? The gift is that world between the shadow and the Siddhi. The Siddhi just blows it all apart. It's 64 brands of enlightenment. It's like there's no thing. It's freaking emptiness. We're all one. It just blows the whole duality. It blows all of matter apart. What an incredible teaching. What an incredible seeing. What an incredible contemplation. So as I contemplate 18, which is in my hologenetic profile, this is coming from how the mental body got formed. And, for me, 18 sits in my emotional body. So that feels like, holy crap, that explains a lot. That's in the sphere of my EQ sits this genetic profile of the IQ. So my emotions and my mind completely woven together. This Gene Key 18 governs how you were parented and indeed how you parent. So if you're a parent, dive into 18. It's going to show you a lot. This is really where the mind comes online as the teenager, and the rebelliousness, the arguing, the stepping into the frequency of judgment. But we're not out of it as parents. We're not out of it as elders, sages, wise women. We're not, because our inner child is still living inside of us. And to the extent that you've parented your inner child is going to be the extent that you leave a whole human being ready to come into the world as your son or daughter as an adult. And if you failed at that, okay, that's part of their path. They get to do that healing. And Gene Key 18, for those of us who have it in our hologenetic profile, we have a lot of wounding to excavate. And so for me, having a lot of wounding to excavate really leaves me as a person who has a lot to say about humanity, has a lot to say about living on planet Earth. So let's jump into 18, because 18 ultimately in the Siddhi level is the bodhisattva. It's the one who has the codes. Listen to this. This one has the codes to bringing heaven on earth, and not just metaphorically, not just internally, but externally. And the Gene Keys teach us, and I don't think we have to know the Gene Keys to know this, there's going to be a lot of chaos that happens before that actually occurs. So we are the bridge species. We are the ones who are walking between ages. Some of you, when I ask who is also a bridge species, you raise your hand. You know that you're here to bridge many things, many worlds, and also that you're here as this warrior archetype, because it's the warrior archetype that just has to hold a lot. She gets to hold a lot. She signed up for holding a lot, to walk between these ages. We're faced now, and I want to presence this, we're faced with war. We're faced with the old way that we've derived literal power, right, from the earth, that oil that we've turned into power. We're faced with shortages of that oil. We're faced with the consequences of that shortage, which could be monumental in certain parts of the world. We're faced with the way we've extracted that oil and the consequence to Mother Earth, and what will happen to peoples all over the world who need to move, the climate exodus. So we can imagine just sitting here, and there's a practice that we get to be in. So stay tuned for the rest of this. I want to presence the challenge, because I don't want to spiritually bypass anything, but I also want to get to what can we do here? What are we doing here? What's our role here? What's the practice here? And believe me, there is a practice, and it's coming. So this is the chaos that this age is bringing to front and center, like putting it right in front of our faces, to look deeply into the abyss, into the well, into the unknown. This is Gene Key 48. We'll bring a little 48 that's hitting tomorrow. We'll bring that energy in, because there's wisdom in the unknown. There's wisdom in the Wei Wu Wei, meaning the action without action, being moved, being moved by the mover, right? That's what that is. So it's not becoming more intellectual and clamping down and thinking that you're right. This is Gene Key 18. Would you rather be happy or would you rather be right? So it's really touching on the frequency that when we're scared, when that spleen, the fears get hit in the spleen, what are all the reactions that happen? And one of them is judgment. We just clamp down. We know we're right because we want to create certainty, because we can't look into the deep well of black nothing and even think we know how to navigate it, which 48 says, no, you do. You're resourceful. You really are. You have the wisdom when you trust, So we're being invited in a huge way to step into trust. I mean, it's interesting because over here, one of my neighbors who also gets to find her new home has not been on the spiritual path, has been in deep avoidance during COVID, has been in deep fear during COVID. And we probably all know someone, or maybe we were that person. So she's just at the beginning level of trust, of finding something way bigger than herself to trust, and of managing her emotions from going off the rails and into an abyss. That's the abyss that we're scared of, that those emotions can take us to that place. And we get to say, well, the emotions take us to rock bottom. And if you've ever heard this phrase, rock bottom is a very solid place. So some people will need to do that before they open. This person that I'm in contact with has actually got a lot of receiving, not reciprocity, but receiving, ears to hear, eyes to see. She's listening, and so she's hungry for the teachings. And as the Gene Key 18 aficionado, I get to step into the bodhisattva. I get to step into supporting her and seeing what she needs to see in order to trust. So the deepest quality of 18, the judgment, guess where it comes from? It comes from victim consciousness. So you can kind of see that when we're not trusting, we're actually in victim. Feel that for yourself, because it's a huge teaching. It's a huge connection of the dots that may be really important for you. I've been witnessing my mom, who has, some of you know, just gone through a stroke 6 months ago. And what's really interesting, it set her back. And there's a lot of victim consciousness coming through. And I'm going to share about what my response has been, which is just in contemplation to the Gene Keys. And 18 is supporting me on my way to navigate that, because it really triggers me when I listen to someone in victim consciousness. So part of the reason why there's so much judgment, and the programming partner is opinions. Gene Key 17, you can't make this up. Judgment and opinions, and the social media platform and Twitter and the World Wide Web and all the vomit that is on these social media platforms and these radio talk show radio hosts, and they're just total low vibe vomit nature. I'm just going to call a spade a spade. I have no tolerance for that. That kind of construct happens from a deep fear, and that deep fear feels victimized. They have lost their power. And I've experienced that. I've come through that. Gene Key 18 people, there's no way we can avoid that. We go deep into victim mind. And I used to really believe the world was against me. Has anyone ever had that as well? I really believed the world was against me. The biggest thing, I say this all the time when I have a chance to, the number one thing on the spiritual path, the first thing that we get through is that the outer reflects the inner. And so nothing is separately real. That's how Jack Groverland, I believe, Unity Church in Boulder would say. That was like 1998. I showed up there and he said, nothing is separately real. And I'm like, what the fuck? I'm serious. And so I've been working, nothing is separately real. And, you go for 25 years saying that, I start to integrate, nothing is separately real. I see the world as that hologram. I see the world as me. And so there's no victim here. There's only me back at me. But that's the very first teaching. We're not separate. And once we cross that, the whole world, the whole fractal world opens up, right? Before that, you're living in a fractal. And when you go through that portal, it's a whole new world. So gossip, complaining, blaming, shaming, worrying. Oh my goddess, that's like one of my things, worrying. I have the lines. Someone's like, oh, you have like lines of worry. Oh my goddess, that's part of the template I get to deal with. Those are all shadow frequencies of this victim consciousness. Interesting, isn't it? Worry is a choice. As my friends and I say, worry is a choice. My Christian friends say worry is a sin. Interesting. It's because it's born. There's something accurate about that. There's something born out of that unconsciousness that worry is. So I work with myself on that all the time. I work with meeting those fears all the time. I work on remembering. I feed myself, not television news. I feed myself frequency food, high frequency food, to remember who and what I really am until this thing chooses to wake up fully. So everyone I know in the spiritual world, if I said, are you in victim? Most people will say, no, I'm not in victim. I used to be in victim. I'm not in victim anymore. I find this fascinating. It's kind of like the world of healthy foods. Every person I know thinks they eat healthy, including me, right? And so what Jinky 18 invites us to is write that shit down. Remember Byron Katie? She wrote the book, Loving What Is. She has that Judge Your Neighbor worksheet. It's called The Work, where you ask these 3 questions and you turn it around. And there are 3 questions about judgments. It's like judge your neighbor, judge someone else and turn it around. See something new about your hologram. So the reason why Byron Katie says you have to write this down is because this thing is slippery. It tells you, it doesn't even let you see it. It just does this sneaky thing. And it's like, oh yeah, no, I'm no, you're looking over here. It's over here. I don't judge. I don't worry. I don't complain. I don't gossip. I'm not in victim. So write it down. One of the beautiful practices, not to make yourself wrong, but to actually get out of suffering. One of the beautiful practices is writing things down, is journaling, or you do the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet and you just discover. And so I know that it's in the background. I totally know this stuff is in the background, and I know it because I can feel it. I've attuned myself to it. And we're going to come to our 3 practices that we get to have to work with judgment. So the thing we're going to learn about judgment when we witness it is that in and of itself, there's nothing wrong with it. So spiritual people often go on the other end of the pendulum. You know, there's the like judge everybody and everybody is at fault people who are unconscious to their own hologram. Then we swing on the pendulum and we spiritual people are like, I don't judge. No, totally. It's all good. It's all perfect. What we're really doing is pushing it all away because we don't want to see ourselves as a judger. That would confront our self-concept. That's shadow work, people. Shadow work isn't like, oh, I'm a people pleaser. No, shadow work is seeing the things you do that you blame other people for doing. That's the heart of shadow work. It's joining humanity. And so judgment itself is not the problem. It's the attachment to the judgment that's the problem. It's that I think I'm right. Right? Or here's the thing that has two frequencies. I've turned it in on myself and I hate myself, or I've projected it outward and I'm better than you. So it's inferior or superior. That's the way that this shows up. So really, if we take it all off the table, let's just take all that off the table and say there's nothing actually wrong with it. Even Byron Katie says that. She's like, I can't control it. These are thought forms like floating by. I don't have anything to do with that, you know? And it's the attachment to those thought forms. It's like, oh, I'm going to grab that thought form. I'm going to make it mine. I'm going to put a stake in the ground around that thought form. And that thought form's, you know, on an unconscious, subconscious level, it's going to keep me safe because it's going to keep all of you people out. But really what it does is it keeps us out from love. So one of the great practices is to write things down and to like, let's kind of break it down into three practices. And the first one is witness. If you can't see it, then you're just going to be unconscious to it. So the way that I've taught before of seeing it is seeing it in other people for me is easier. Seeing it in what I don't like, because Gene Key 18 is about perfection, not perfectionism, perfection. Like high standards, going for what's possible, going for Eden, going for heaven on earth. That's what Gene Key 18 is all about. And I have that. I have the whole channel. So it's like that. What I'm here to do is point out what's not working, the flaws. The thing is that it's a projected channel. People have to ask you, and it's not an individual channel. It's a collective. It's what's not working in the world at large. So I would say, using my Gene Key 18 skills, what's not working is the way that we handle shadow. We've been afraid of it. So we wall ourselves off and we blame or we worry or we complain. Complaining is huge. I notice the complaining all the time in this head. So write it down, be aware of it. And then when we can be aware of it, there's like a witness quality where we can detach from it. Especially the more that you work with it and you do the work with it, there's a detachment that happens. Like, I don't take this on as myself. I witness that this thing is doing that. And you know, I like Ken Wilber says, nothing is 100% false. And since we live in duality, the equal and opposite is true as well. So now I'm in territory where things I'm saying all have an opposite to them. That's equally as true. And that what other people are saying, there's nothing 100% false. Oh shit. Okay. Now I'm in this place that's not so black and white. So that's how I walk myself off that ledge. And then I smile. I have an inner smile. So the third step I would say is smile, because there's a compassion in there. There's a joke in there. If you don't get the joke, then you're going to be in seriousness, which is the other shadow frequency. And when you're in seriousness, you don't avail yourself to serendipity and play and luck and really orgasm, divine ecstasy. You keep yourself from really feeling the fucking irony of life, the delight of incarnating in form, if you don't suspend your judgment. Now, that's totally separate from taking a stand. Taking a stand, the come from place isn't that I'm right. It's just it's the integrity. It's the gift frequency. It's just, I've worked through enough and this is who I am and where I am in this moment. And so I'm a no to that. The spleen knows a lot of no's, by the way. If you're a splenic authority, if you have a splenic authority, I'm a splenic projector. So to me, my no is very clear. It loves to say no. It's like my authority is either not no or no. Isn't that interesting? You know, those of you who have sacral authority, you might get like, yes, I want to do that. I mostly get like no or not no. So my no is pretty good because Gene Key 18, integrity. Integrity is like what the frames of the house Are they going to collapse? Do you have enough structure in your frame to move yourself forward, to create inner certainty? Like, so certainty is not lost. It's just misplaced when we're looking at it in the outer world. But when I have inner certainty here, there are things I can rely on about myself. And I've cultivated that. So my neighbor she doesn't have the certainty because she's spiraling and because she's never trained her emotions. And therefore she goes on the ride of them, and that takes her into the abyss. So because I have these distinctions and I know how to work with myself, and I know how to allow myself feel something and cry without attaching a story, or just witnessing that it might be attaching a story, and then breathing and letting it go, that kind of mastery is hard won, right? I don't claim that title easily, but knowing where I came from, and I see my friend, my high school friend here, so she knows where I came from. Knowing where I came from, I can claim that there's a level of mastery because it's practice on the mat. It's over and over and over. You know, one therapist said to me, yeah, do that 1,000 times and you'll finally get it. God, amen to that. So over and over working it, there's some certainty I can give myself because I trust it. That's the whole teaching of the Bardo. When you cross over, when you die, is your mind managed? Because you're going to meet the very selves, the very judgments. You will meet them. And either you buy it and you get hooked in, and then that informs your next incarnation, or you don't buy it. You're like, no, I've seen that one. I love you, man, but bye-bye. No, I'm going to the bright light. And it's uncomfortable, that bright light. It's like, it's the black hole. It's confronting. It's so bright that you shatter into a million pieces. I'm not there yet, but that's in my consciousness, right? That's in my drishti. That's where I want to go, to allow that shattering and still know the essential nature of who and what I really am. So here's the thing about Gene Key 18. All judgment is self-judgment. Remember, I said there's nothing separately real. So this has been my teaching with my mother, who is in a lot of victim consciousness. She's in a lot of fear. She's in a lot of control. And she really wasn't like that before the stroke. She was like, she had attained some pretty awesome levels. And some of you know, because I've done some live streams on it. I was like blown away. That was like February. And here we are, October. And there's just a lot of fear. And what occurs in me is judgment. When I witness that, I'm judging her. I'm like, I thought you had a faith and you don't have a faith. Like, what is that about? You know, like I want to rip that to shreds, right? And so I, as I'm in contemplation of this, I'm like, no, see yourself. So what's the medicine here? Compassion. Compassion. Would I rather be right or would I rather be happy? Well, actually, I'd rather be happy. And what I know is all judgment is self-judgment. So I get to see that how I treat her is really how I'm treating myself. At the end of the day, there's nothing separately real. The first principle of waking up. So let's pop over to the final piece, and the final piece is the bodhisattva. So in Buddhism, the bodhisattva are the souls that have gone through the bardo. They're fully awake. They really could go into this Buddhic realm, the realm of the gods, and just bliss out forever. I mean, I'm making my own rendition of Buddhism, so forgive me. but like shorthand, how I understand it, they get to do that. And what they choose is they choose to come back to earth. They choose to bring the wisdom. The wisdom is actually the opposite of knowledge, right? The knowledge is what we think we know. Truly wise people let go of everything they think they know. And they come in, Jinki 48, wisdom, Siddhi of wisdom. Jinki 18, perfection. They come in as the bodhisattva and they hold a paradox. I'm getting chills saying this. And the paradox is knowing on the inside that everything is perfect as it is. Seeing the actual perfection of the whole. Have you ever had that enlightenment experience before? It doesn't mean that it had to stay, but have you had the experience, maybe even just a glimpse, where you thought, oh my God, it's all perfect. The understanding floods in and you can't name it. You can't describe it. There are no words for it. It's just an incredible, holistic, integrous sense that everything is perfect. And then you snap out of it and you see how it's not perfect, right? There's the paradox. So Jinki 18 is really about holding the frequency of perfection while at the same time coming here so that all the world can get uplifted to that very frequency. That's the bodhisattva. It is truth because truth is paradox. Right? Anytime we're in duality, as I mentioned, the equal and opposite also exists. So we know we're in truth when we're in a paradox. And Jinki 18 is that paradox. Everything is perfect, and there's a lot of shit to do here. Right? And so let's bring in Jinki 46 and let's say, let's have delight at all the stuff that there is to do here. My mom and I, back in the day, we've had our ups and downs. It was when George Bush was president and we were both complaining about a bunch of stuff. And I could feel the frequency and I interrupted our complaining and I said, and isn't it fantastic? And she's like, yes, because there was some way in which our come from place of the complaining wasn't that anything was wrong. We were just both in the frequency of 18 saying, look at all the stuff we get to fix. You know, my mom's a social worker, like fixing stuff is her jam too. I'm doing this as a coach, a guide, a teacher. Fixing stuff is my jam too. How delightful is that we get to come here and do it. Now, there's one more thing that I want to give you as we exit Jinki 18 today. And that is a multi-dimensional gift. So in 18, the codes exist of bringing heaven to earth, literally, not just a metaphoric, but really living Eden, living the garden, living perfection. The codes are in this Jinki. I'm just looking at my notes just to make sure I cover this. So the 5D gift, if y'all remember, last 2 summers ago, I read the Gaia Codex to everyone. And was it 2 summers? I think, yeah, 2 summers ago, I read the Gaia Codex. And in the Gaia Codex, the feminine has these multidimensional gifts. So it's kind of the end of the world. There was a plague, people are dying. She's wrote this many years before, Sarah Drew. And the feminine, the women are waking up, the divine feminine is waking up, and all these gifts are coming through, multidimensional gifts, traveling between dimensional realities, all gathering from all parts of the world, transmuting sickness and disease through their body to wholeness and healing for the collective, just to name a few. This 18 has this gift too. And if you've ever experienced it, it's awesome to name it so you can practice it. I didn't know that this was a gift that I had until I read 18, but I consciously do this and I love it. So 18 has the frequency of perfection. And when 18 has cleared enough of the judgment and brought in enough of the compassion, 18 can hold a high frequency for humanity. So when you're around someone who is in a lower frequency, you can actually, through your frequency, influence the hidden codes in their frequency through your intention. So like with my neighbor in her spiraling, there's not a lot I say because I'm very conscious of fixing energy by now. I'm conscious of my own time and the stuff I'm here to do. So a lot of the time, what I do is hold a frequency and I look her in the eye. And the other day she was like, oh my God, I feel so much love for you. Is that really for me? Not so much. It's the love for the frequency. It's a love that is the truth of everything. And this is the neighbor, by the way, for those of you who are following me, this was the one that I did some mind shifting around. So it's done. It's gone full circle, full circle. What an incredible healing. And that healing is what you are here to transmit. Whether you have 18 in your chart or not, you get to hold a frequency from the certainty, the inner knowing, the wisdom inside of you that comes from nothing, penetrates into form, is unnameable, unknowable, undescribable, indescribable. And here you are, one with that frequency in that moment. I don't even think it has to be 100%, just whatever is enough. And that person's hidden codes can start to calibrate to your code. That's how people are going to wake up really fast. That's how we're going to go quantum. So when the linear mind doesn't know, how are we going to get out of this incredible chaos that we're in right now? Just know that we're going to go quantum. And the gifts are already, we haven't even begun to utilize the high frequency gifts inside of our DNA, our literal embodiment. We have not yet. So isn't it exciting? Isn't it exciting that the whole thing is breaking down so that, because if it weren't, we would just be like watching soap operas, eating bonbons. We'd just be lazy. There'd be nothing to do, right? So now that there's something to do, there's a reason to sharpen our tools, to actually know that we're on the razor's edge and that this mindset matters. And any moment that we give into that mindset, we're going to fall off that razor's edge. And then we're going to get back on and we're going to do it again. And we're going to train ourselves over and over so that we really become ninja. That's what I see. And that's how we're going to go quantum. Wow, that was super fun. Thank you for that. I'm going to just see Vanessa's here and Jamie, love you, sisters. Whoever else, hashtag replay. I got a little long on this one. This one was deep, 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 deep. Oh, and the retrogrades that are all one by one going to go beep, 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 forward looking. It's going to change our world. And we're going to really be grateful that we had this time, that we were challenged, but not so much, not more than we could handle, so that we could be the frequency that we're waiting for, right? Because the bodhisattva, she comes back for the world. It's the world, the whole world, the collective. So let's right now just tune in, close your eyes, hold the collective in your hands. Imagine you're holding the whole world in your hands. Imagine your hands are vibrating with gold light. They're not even matter, but it appears as matter, vibrating light. Imagine from your heart space, the most radiant, expansive, juicy, beautiful light coming from your heart and enveloping the whole world in all of its problems, in all of its beauty. And that as we embark on fixing, healing, all the things that are broken and bringing them into integrity, may our come from place be one of delight, be one of the bodhisattva. May we be able to hold that it's all perfect and there's just stuff that we get to do. May we take it on with joy. May we take it on with orgasmic pleasure in letting the divine Shakti flow through our embodiment. Yes to being here. Yes to our feet on Mother Earth. Yes to Mother Earth. Yes to the divine incarnate. Yes to my specific template. Say that to yourself. Yes to my template. Yes to me as who I am. Giving the gifts that only I can give, having the personal history that only I have to give these gifts that only I have. Yes, yes, yes. Vibrate with your yes. Expand your yes. Cover the globe with gold light with your yes. And then let's bring our hands together, rub them together. Let's dedicate this Shakti to the merits, bringing your thumb tips to the level of your third eye. Gathering all the positive energy we have generated, all the delight, we dedicate it to the merits. May all beings benefit from the merits of our efforts. Namaste. Let's take a little bow. Blessings, blessings, sisters, brothers, who is ever listening. Thank you so much. I'll see you next week.